and welcome to the next video. This is the book review on The Girl You Gave Away by Jess Ryder. A very interesting book, a book that definitely took me by surprise in its content and very, very interesting, and I'll go through that in a minute. But I did want to let you know a lot of my books will be Kindle editions, and just to let you know, the Amazon app is free. The Kindle version for Samsung or iPhone is absolutely free, and they give you, when you download the app, they give you £7 credit, so you can get your own first book for free, basically. So the Botanists Daughter I didn't pay for, which is the previous review, which I'll link somewhere. This will also be in the book review playlist on the bottom of my channel. So yes, you get £7 credit, so you can get, you know, effectively 2 books. Some of them go for £3, £3.99, depends on how new they are. So yes, I would advise that. It's highly recommended. It's easier to kind of read your books. It's kind of, you know, not cumbersome with the book, and obviously it's better for the environment as well. So yes, getting back to this is The Girl You Gave Away by Jess Ryder. Really interesting book, different subplots, things like that as well. So it starts off with Erin. It's her 40th birthday, and Erin is married to Tom, and they have 2 teenage children, Oliver and Chloe. And so all of her friends, you know, from school, everyone's arrived to give her this surprise 40th birthday, and everything's going great. And then there is a knock on the door, but there's nobody there, but a red envelope has been pushed through the letterbox, and it says, "Happy birthday, Mum, from the daughter you gave away." So she basically, when she was 14, and you find this out in the next chapter, so there's lots of subplots, and what I mean by that is that it starts off with Erin, and it says 2017, so this is obviously a book that was written in 2017. Sorry, excuse me, 2020, so it's quite relevant, quite new. And so that's Erin when she's 40, and so it goes into her and her friends kind of reacting to this. Now Asha is her best friend, and Holly are her best friends from school, so they've been friends for years, since, you know, secondary school, so they're there, and so they know a lot about this, but her husband Tom or any of her new friends and children from, you know, this marriage don't know. And basically what you find out in the second chapter, it says Erin. So the first one is Erin 2020, and so that chapter ends, and then you have Erin, I think it's 1998, and she is 14, and it talks about how she never really related to her parents at all. They were quite cold. They were a Catholic family, quite strict, but she was one of 5, and she'd 4 brothers, and her parents kind of often didn't kind of let it, there wasn't a big secret that she was a mistake, basically. And so they were very hard on her, very strict on her, they expected a lot of her. When she reached 14, she kind of started to kind of branch out and kind of act out slightly, and through all of that she met this older boy, Dean, and Dean and her went together for the summer, but she didn't realise, he didn't think it was such a big thing. And she got pregnant, and she eventually winds up in the hospital while she's about to give birth, and realises that, but starts to talk to this other expectant mother who's a little bit older than her, called Gemma. And Gemma is talking about this wonderful boyfriend she has, and she's so lucky to have such support, and in walks Dean, who was the person she'd been with in the summer. So then it stops there, and then it goes back to 2020. And so a lot of this is subplotting, going back and forth, and she's in such a kind of state of mind after her 40th birthday. What is she going to do? Her husband, his mum, he pledged to her, he said to her the night of their wedding, and this is what she kind of explains to her friends, because Asha, her friend, is like, you have to tell him, you know, this has been a secret, but now it's time to kind of come clean to Tom and let him know what's happened. But what Tom had said to her after she'd accepted his proposal, when they were in college, is, please don't keep any secrets from me, because my mum found out my dad cheated on her for years, and trust is really important to me, and they promised that to each other. So now she's very scared to tell him. And she owns, so going on to the next chapter, she does own her own business, because she had to leave school quite early, because of the pregnancy when she was 14, she never really got into anything qualified wise. So what she did do is she was able to be a nursery nurse, and eventually, with Tom's help, her husband, she actually branched out and rented a building, bought the building, and then had her own nursery, basically. So she was the manager of her own nursery by the age of 40. So she has that to go to. She has her own business, so she's got quite the freedom to come and go. So that really helps when she starts to get emails from her daughter, who now she's found out is called Jade, and she was adopted out. And so it goes into that and what Jade's story is. So basically it goes to Erin when she's 40 at the beginning, who's the mum of the 2 children, Chloe and Ollie, and her husband Tom, and then it ends on her finding the letter. The next chapter is Erin 95 or 98, forgive me guys, but it's when she was 14, and it goes into how she met, her 2 best friends. They go to a concert, they meet Dean, and then it's her kind of acting out with Dean basically for the summer. And then it goes into this other girl's name called Jade, who you find out is Erin's adopted daughter, and what her life has been like, and how she's struggling and really wants to find Erin. But what Erin didn't realise is that because she was 14 and careless, and some teenagers do go through a phase where they just drink and they don't realise the harm they're doing, is that Jade was born with fetal alcohol syndrome, which means that parts of her brain and intellect aren't as developed as other people's would be. So she struggled in school. She does charity work and things like that, but she definitely struggled in school and doesn't have the control of, if she's stressed, to be able to control that and take a step back. She doesn't have that control because her brain isn't functioning in that way. So that is actually quite interesting and goes into a different aspect as well of how she copes with everything. So basically what she's trying to find out, this is Erin, the mum that gave away Jade at 14. And what I will say is that Erin was told to give Jade away by her parents. So she was kind of at that point where she was kind of given paperwork to sign and things like that. Now this is completely fiction. I kind of was quite interested when I found this book. Again, it was a recommendation from Amazon, one of the 2020 recommendations. So that's what I read the sample. That's another thing I'll just say before we continue, is that you do get a 10-page sample of every book before you want to buy it. So if you don't want it, you can download the sample. If you don't want it, you don't have to pay. So yes, so getting back to the story. So after she hesitantly gives Jade away, Jade is born 3 months early, and she feels at 14, she just thinks it's premature. She isn't told anything. She isn't wise to that kind of thing. She hid the pregnancy for a long time. Mum and Dad weren't very emotionally there for her. They were quite busy and didn't realise until a long time into the pregnancy that she was pregnant. So very interesting to see where she is now in terms of her business and her marriage and husband and children. And then suddenly this letter arrives and her whole kind of life gets kind of opened up, really. And the next chapter then is Jade, as I was saying, going back to Jade, who has fetal alcohol syndrome. So she works for a charity. She has a very kind of odd outlook on life. She got adopted out to these wonderful parents, but they didn't realise for so long, until she was about 18 months old, that she did have this. They could see she wasn't developing, but not only developing learning-wise, developing in how she thinks and what reality is and what reality isn't, and that kind of is very interesting as you go along. So basically what Erin is trying to find out after that is, how did Jane find me? What's happened? Who are my friends and who are my enemies? Who would want to do this to my marriage? So Tom obviously has always had this promise to Erin, please, before they got married, the morning before, I think the week before, after she'd accepted the proposal, so she was kind of thinking to herself, that would have been the time to tell him, and I haven't. I was trying to protect him. There was no other malice in it. I just wanted to protect him. And she had thought, Jade is probably given away to this amazing family. I want to move on. And so her big question through a lot, and the quest through a lot of this, is to find out who are her closest friends, are they her friends, and how has all this happened. Other things that happen is that somebody gets hold of all these emails and pretends to be Jade, and so there's a whole other subplot there too. So it definitely pulls you in. It's very interesting. I had lots of stuff going on in between in life, like open uni and family, so it wasn't something I could, you know, read in 3 days, but if I had the chance to, I probably would have finished it quite quickly. It took me about 3 weeks. So getting back then, what she's trying to do is find out. So she tries to meet up with Jade. She's kind of worries, do I just avoid it? Do I let her? How has she actually found my email? Because she gets an email after the card, and it's saying, do you want to meet me or do I come to you? And so she's worried, does that mean she's going to come to my doorstep and my husband isn't going to know who she is? What's going to happen? So she feels a bit overwhelmed, pressured, and so she kind of, the only people she knows that really knew about Jade are her parents neighbours, Asha and Asha's parents. Asha's her best friend. So it's kind of unravels, very unravels. So it's then about them finally kind of realizing we need to kind of meet, what's going on, and you know, Jade is slightly manipulates the situation, and when she does find Erin and they do finally meet, because she has this fetal alcohol syndrome, she also wants Erin to want her like a mother, because she's never had that from her, and feels sorry for her and sympathize towards her, so she doesn't portray the life she's had that's true. So, you know, the first thing Erin says when they meet is, my God, I gave you away. How was your life? How's everything been? When she meets Jade, she's 25, so she's a lot older than Ollie, who's 18, and Chloe, who's 14. So Jade kind of goes, wasn't great, you know, social services. I was fostered here, there. I'm living now in a hostel. And actually there's a whole separate life she has, and her mum and dad are lawyers and she has a really nice house. So it goes into all the kind of, I'd almost say it's slightly like a thriller. There's definitely different angles to it that definitely pull you in. I think then what happens after that is that Erin then has this tremendous guilt. Oh my goodness, this is her life and what's happened, and it's not the truth at all. And then it kind of goes into blackmail. So somebody else in her life finds out that she wants, these Erin and Jade have basically met, and she pretends online to be Jade and says, if you want all of this to go away, I want £10,000. And so she doesn't realise it's not Jade because it's just come from an email, and so lots of things happen there too. So basically Erin also strives to find, because Erin is kind of being blamed for a lot of this, how could you give her away? Tom finally finds out, leaves the house, Ollie goes with him, and Chloe stays with mum. But Jade finds Chloe on Instagram, and so there's a whole thing there where she again says, I've had an awful life, mum never cared about me, and then Chloe feels so sorry for her and runs away. So there's a whole kind of set of subtexts going on, and you know, subplots even, and it's Erin who has to try and pick up all these pieces, pick up, is her marriage going to continue? What does Jade want? Is this Jade? Because she kind of has a little bit suspicions towards the next 4 or 5 emails when she's asking for the money, because when she met Jade face to face it was very different. So she's kind of, and then who are my friends? What's happening? So it's a very, very interesting book. And then towards the next few chapters, it's her saying Jade needs to know who her father is, because I'm not the only one, because Erin's been blamed for all these kind of things, for breaking up the marriage, for not telling Chloe and Ollie and Tom when she thought she was just protecting her family. Then she's getting these emails from Jade saying, you know, you abandoned me, and she kind of feels like everything is falling on her shoulders. So her real task through this book is, who are my friends and who are my enemies, and I need to find Dean, who I mentioned in the very beginning, who was the person she went with for one summer. He's Jade's father. So it's a very, very interesting book. Again, I finished it in about 3 weeks. I had a lot going on. It was a good read. It was a surprising ending. So I will say that. But again, lots of subplots, definitely keeps you interested. Again, I'm somebody that if I get to the first or second chapter, and I'm still trying to really pull myself in, it's not gonna be for me. But yes, I would highly recommend it, guys. I think these times it's good to keep your mind on things. I think things are going slightly more positive now, just getting off the book review now. So just before I get off that, I will say I would recommend it. I would say it's for 16 years up, and that is just because of the content of the book. I am going to try, these were two fictional books that I've just reviewed, so The Botanist's Daughter and The Girl You Gave Away. They're fictional books. They're very interesting, definitely took my mind off things. But what I want to do now, and the next book that I want to review, is more about life after we're all able to come out of this, and certain books that have been written that are still relevant now. So they may have been written in the past, but what they talk about is actually quite relevant. So things like, how are our emotions doing? How do we get to control those? What about anxiety? And also, what do we do in terms of when we all go back to work? Is everything going to be the same? I know some people aren't going to have jobs to go back to. So there's lots of interesting help books out there to deal with anxiety. There's an Oprah book club that still goes on, which I have found on YouTube, and I found on Facebook. She was a recommended channel, and she still continues Oprah Book Club, and she's very into emotion and taking control, and for people to just, you know, have control of every part of their life, which I think is going to be really relevant when we come out of this, guys, because a lot of us are not going to have control of everything. A lot of us would have lost loved ones, jobs, things like that, and our emotions are going to suffer because of that. So that was something I wanted to look at. So I'm going to find an appropriate book that hopefully covers financial control, emotions, getting back to you, instead of, you know, because I think when we finally come out of this, we're going to love being able to have that freedom, but we're also going to be overwhelmed. We're also going to be, where do I go now? What do I do? You're going to be going back into your job or your routine or whatever you do, but you're also going to be trying to get your mind around everything that's just happened in the last couple of months. So that was my kind of aim and plan going down the road in terms of book reviews. So I will be looking at that, and I will probably put the book up, because by the time this is up, I'll probably have chosen that book, and so I will put it up here, or I'll link it down below. So my book review on The Girl You Gave Away, I feel it's a definite read that will keep you interested. I think that there's lots of subplots that you wouldn't even think of, and it goes in and out of different years, which then helps you kind of build up your character of Erin. More than just on her 40th birthday, you kind of find out how all these happened, and how all these things happened really, and how her parents kind of shaped her teenage years by not even knowing it, because they weren't really close, and she wants to have a different kind of experience with Ollie and Chloe, and she had that marriage, and she had everything that she didn't have when she was younger. And so when this happens, it kind of just opens up her world in kind of a crazy way. So if you're interested in fiction and things like that, I think it's a good book. Definitely kept me interested. I will link it below as well, but again, I'll link the paperback and the Kindle. So if you do prefer paperback, that's obviously an option you can take on Amazon, and she also has her own Amazon section as an author, so she has other novels there too. But what I was hoping was, because I said before, the next review, it will be more about kind of how we go on in a positive way, and that will be things like financial control, jobs, emotions, keeping your family together, things like that. Really getting back to your friends circle, your family circle, having some peace of mind in yourself. And I know we're not there yet, we're certainly not, but we are improving. We're definitely improving. The peak has now, we have come through the peak, and so there is positive moves. I know this, the death rates are still high in the care homes and things like that, but I think we're all doing what we should be doing. The majority of us are staying home, the majority of us are following the rules, and I think if we continue this, we will be able to come out of this eventually. So that was my review on The Girl You Gave Away by Jess Ryder. I will pop it below again. Thank you for looking at the video, guys, and I will see you in the next one.